As the modern world evolves, another country is said to have taken a step backward.
Let a Muslim lady dress how she wants to dress, let a Muslim man dress how he wants to dress.
It's not that we're oppressed, it's that we choose to wear it.
Politically, you're my opponent, and I'll oppose you.
It's not a religious law.
All these will be revealed tonight on Sharia Law Unveiled. In modern-day Britain, Sharia law has something of a bad reputation. It has become one of today's most controversial issues. World media has shown us instances of beheadings and stonings linked to Sharia law, and demands for it are common among extremists. In recent years, many Sharia law activists have taken the initiative to voice their concerns on social media. When a Sudanese woman was controversially sentenced to hang for apostasy on May the 15th, people from all over the world gathered on social media to show their support, and she was later freed from her ordeal. But what about people here in Britain? Do they know about it? When I mention Sharia law, what are the first few things that pop into their heads?
Sharia law.
I sort of think it's an eye for an eye, a tooth for tooth kind of thing.
The first things that appear in my mind are equality and a way of living.
It's based in Islam. I understand that it's a law that's historically from Islam in Saudi Arabia.
Fundamentalism, kind of quite negative, extremist, religious points of view.
As far as I'm aware, a lot of Sharia law is illegal in this country.
A lot of things have been in the news about how Sharia law can be against basic human rights. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's not going to fit well under the European human rights.
Oppression, women that aren't allowed to do what they can do in this country.
My first reaction would be that it has a bias perhaps against women.
A lot of them cover up because of their beauty and everything, so that's the reason why they have to cover up, and the circumstances of that, man, really and truly.
I have 9 sisters, and my parents have never stopped any one of us from going and educating ourselves or, having freedoms that we have in any other country.
Do you think it's a law that could be used here in Britain? Do you think it's a law for everyone or not?
Not if it's against the law in this country, no. I don't think it can be implemented.
No, I don't think religion should get confused with politics. That's my personal opinion.
A part of Sharia law and a part of Islamic law is to respect the laws of the country that you live in, which we live in the UK, so we respect them laws, we abide by them laws, as well as Sharia law.
And as I said before, I think to have a two-tier system or to have more than one basis of laws in a country is problematic as well.
As an individual thing, I can't see that why you couldn't apply certain things, but as like an overarching kind of umbrella for everyone, I don't think it would be very applicable now.
If you could learn anything more about Sharia law, if you had any questions or any uncertainties about it, what would they be?
I guess it is about finding out what exactly it means and what it means to individuals. There's a lot of flexibility even in Christian viewpoints, so I guess that's the same with Sharia law, but my understanding is that it's quite dedicated to just one point of view, that there's not a lot of flexibility in it.
I think from a Western perspective, it's knowing how it would how these things impact in comparison to kind of everyday life.
I think personally, the Sharia law, people should have more open-minded and more understanding of everything, to be honest, because the more you understand, more knowledge you have, the better it is.
I can do this because I can use my human right to umbrella that, and they will have to respect that, but other people might think, no, you can't do that, and then I'm going to think that, well, if you do that to me, I have a right to do so.
It's 2014, we're not in the dark ages, and women should have their rights and should be understood and have a voice, and that's my understanding.
I dress the way I want to dress. Let a Muslim lady dress how she wants to dress. Let a Muslim man dress how he wants to dress, as long as you're modest. But some people might not agree with that. They might say it's free. Not, like you said, your topic was also about human rights. If someone wants to show off their cleavage, I don't know, that's their choice, but it's, if you are a good Muslim or a good Sikh, you'd refrain from looking at them with bad eyes.
From our survey, we've discovered that news about Sharia law is mainly circulated around the internet as opposed to any other mediums. 57% of the locals declared that Sharia law is incompatible with Britain. Another 66 of the respondents felt that religion should not interfere with any legal proceedings, whereas another 57% strongly agreed that Sharia law should be limited to the Muslim world. I've analysed both the online and street data, and despite the differing opinions, one thing's for certain: us Brits do have a basic understanding of the law. But as another country prepares to implement Sharia law with the support of the majority of its population, is there a part of Sharia that we've missed? I'll be setting out to learn why the Bruneians are in support of the law and what it means for them to live under the execution of it.
Alhamdulillah, dalam sejarahnya Brunei Darussalam selaku bumi bertuah ini tidaklah pernah meminta kebenaran dari sesiapa untuk memilih Islam sebagai agama resmi negara. Demikian juga, kita tidak meminta dari mana-mana pihak untuk melaksanakan undang-undang jenayah syariah demi kerana ia adalah semata-mata hidayat khusus daripada Allah kepada kita.
Brunei Darussalam is a sovereign country located on the Isle of Borneo in Southeast Asia, with Malaysia and Indonesia as the neighbouring countries. As of August 2014, it has a population of 393,000 people, with the Malays being the most dominant ethnicity at 66%, followed by Chinese and other ethnicities. MIB, or Malay Islamic Monarchy, was officially proclaimed as the national philosophy of Brunei on the day of its independence on January 1st, 1984, making Islam as its official religion.
As far as I can tell, the Muslims, I suppose, would be much easier for us to just take it in because, I mean, it's a lot to do with just how we are, and it's, after all, our religion. So it's a bit more easier, but I'm not sure what I can say on behalf of the non-Muslims. Perhaps they don't understand it as much as we do. I guess it's just the way of life, because we live by what we call the MIB, which is Melayu Islam Beraja. So yeah, it's just basically about the mannerism in which you bring yourself about as a Malay, as a people of the Muslim community. And I mean, yeah, I mean, it's not that much different, I mean, Islam talks about being good in manners, saying yes, please, thank you, and all that sort of stuff. And that's the kind of thing we do as well as Bruneians. And we speak, we're told to speak as an MIB in a soft-spoken tone and all that stuff, respect your elderlies. So it's, the same sort of concepts from Islam and with our MIB in Brunei. So yeah, I mean, that makes it a lot easier, I suppose. As a Muslim woman, I can say that if it's all about clothing and hijab, because after all, that's what the whole world's, targeting us on, I wouldn't say that I'm oppressed. Yeah, I wouldn't say that. We need to understand sort of like the rationale behind it. It's all about, like, for instance, in clothing, it's all about modesty. And I think it's fair, like they tell us to wear the hijab, for instance, for reasons to not, get sort of too much attention. And yeah, I think it's fair. At the end of the day, you don't get looked at more than, yeah. So I feel safer, I guess. In that sense, I wouldn't say I'm oppressed. And yeah, I hope I make that clear. It's not that we're oppressed, it's that we choose to wear it because we feel like it actually protects us. I think it's probably a yearly thing or a few years. So we have a celebration of women. We have 50 inspirational women in Brunei, in which they have a conference. They talk about the achievements of, for example, being able to take on jobs that were not readily available to us before. Like now we have the head of our law office is actually a woman now. So that's a big deal because it's actually the law itself. Well, I think that they should ask us, if they don't understand something, they should ask us. As long as you remember your roots and everything, it's really important that we need to remember that. I know it's a bit difficult that we sometimes forget that we are the faces of Muslim, and and we forget, and so we do things that sometimes may not be good to our image. I mean, it's very difficult for us to tell people not to judge us, but it's because we carry this image of Islam, and we need to be prepared, and that's our responsibility after all. I mean, we need to, if we're wearing and we're looking it, and we should act like we are as well.
Is it true that Sharia law is made to serve both Muslims and non-Muslims? To hear from both sides, we're going to make a video call with Chakai, a non-Muslim Bruneian who has agreed to share his experience with us. So my first question to you is, how do you picture Brunei? What kind of place is it?
Well, growing up in Brunei, it's a really safe country, and the people there is really nice. Government's really good as well. Really, they really care about the people. So generally, it's a very, very good place to be brought up in. Yeah.
What do you think of the implementation of Sharia law now in Brunei?
Well, so far, I don't see much change going on in Brunei because they were planning to release it in phases, so phase 1 up to 3, and right now they're just still in phase 1. So the law is pretty much the same or quite similar to how it was before, generally. So I don't see much difference now.
Okay. Brunei is a multiracial country, obviously, so how are the non-Muslims being treated in Brunei so far? Or how do you think when phase 3 is actually in, do you think there will be any kind of any difference there?
Well, most of the law, I'm sure you know, it's mostly for Muslims. So I don't think there is. And being a multiracial country, so different races are treated equally. So yeah, I don't see any problem there.
Do you have any words or any hope as a Bruneian non-Muslim regarding Sharia law and its enforcement? Is there anything that you want to say as a non-Muslim?
As long as the law is fair and there's a good reason behind implementing this law, just to back it up. So I think that's all that I have to say about that. Other than that, I don't think so. You can't just come up with a law and say we want to do this and then give no reason. Say why you want to do something like that. If you explain it clearly to the public, and then I think that would be fine. Yeah.
No matter how hard they try to explain it, the harsh punishments still seem to be the main focus point and the most controversial aspect of Sharia law. But is there any logic behind it? Is there a rationale in it all? Sheikh Mohammed Iqbal, an imam from Birmingham, has the answers.
First and foremost, they have no ramifications in the UK. None of the punishments can ever be implemented in the UK. They just can't. None of the conditions fit.
No.
I'll give you an example. If there's a drought, none of the had punishments can be applied.
Oh, okay.
If people are dying of hunger, how can you punish them?
Exactly.
They've got no food. How can you cut someone's hand? That's why, when a punishment is carried out, it's always that, the person's dignity or whatever is always kept as much as possible. It's like, when someone's being punished for the lashes, they're supposed to hold something under their armpit. Now, how hard can you hit?
So, can you tell me what is the punishment for apostasy under Sharia law?
Okay. Can't apply.
Why is that?
We don't have a state.
Okay.
Because apostasy is a treason against the state.
Yeah.
The understanding of, the whole, all the ramifications of apostasy are attached with treason. Because the thing is that you've got to understand, for a Muslim state, the head of state is not the guy who's ruling. The head of state is Allah, the sovereign. sovereignty does not belong to the king or the ruler. Sovereignty belongs to God. So when you rebel against God, you've rebelled against the state. That's, yeah? So in an ideal, it would be, is tantamount to treason. Mm-hmm. So whatever, anybody who has a problem with, you know, the rules of apostasy has to answer what is their understanding of treason. Because it's exactly the same. It's like if you commit treason in this country, they'll give you, because we don't have the death sentence, but they will give life means life. Because you know the judges in this country, there are certain punishments where they can actually judge that, you know, punishment, a life sentence means a life sentence. Yeah? And it's the same with apostasy. Why it doesn't apply in our situation in this country is we don't have a state. Yeah? And religion, our religion does not force you.
So to end, how would you help clarify the misconceptions that might be out there about Sharia law?
What comes to mind is, you know, in English there's this saying, people who live in glass houses shouldn't throw stones. What's needed is that, you know, people who are finding fault with it need to look within themselves first.
So we heard from the public earlier about their first impressions of Sharia law. Most of them mention it's against basic human rights. So to discuss this further, we're going to meet Anne Walters from the National Secular Society.
Yes, I mean, Sharia law is against human rights. And the thing is, you know, this isn't me saying this. And like I said, I didn't come into this looking for this. I heard what was being said. So these are not my words. You know, I often tell people, don't listen to me, listen to them. So it's the major tribunals themselves, the Islamic Sharia Council, the Muslim Arbitration Tribunal. They admit that a man, for example, under Sharia can beat his wife if she's disobedient. Their words, not mine. They admit that a woman's testimony is worth half of a man's. I've met women who have been through it who confirm that they've needed a witness to confirm everything they say. You know, and there's the issue of women's rights in divorce. Women don't have unilateral divorce rights. Child custody rights. The father is automatically awarded children after a preset age. Again, this is their words, not mine. And we know also that under Sharia in this country, and again it's been proven, that they're marrying underage girls. This is a crime, a serious crime, and it's going on with absolute impunity, and I think it should be stopped. Why should one group of people have lesser rights than another? You know, why should a Muslim woman be subjected to the kind of cruelty, frankly, and a non-Muslim woman not? We're all human beings, we all deserve the same rights. So the idea that we should separate up the country and give lesser, well, they are lesser rights, they're not different, they're lesser rights to one group of women in this country is appalling to me. So no, it shouldn't apply to anyone. We want Sharia tribunals in this country shut down. We believe we know they're treating women absolutely appallingly. We know this because of the evidence tells us this. And we want everyone to be subjected to English law only in all matters of life. If you are a Muslim woman suffering under Sharia in this country, they're not allowed to do this to you. Go and look for some help. There are a lot of us out there who will help you. And the second thing I would say to you is the political movement against this is growing and getting stronger. We're putting pressure on the government every day. We've got a very cowardly government, unfortunately, which doesn't want to upset anyone, and therefore won't even defend the basic human rights of its own citizens. It's coming to an end. I mean, even when I started doing this 5 years ago, things were very different than they are now. There is a huge, huge growing body of people in this country who don't want to sit back and watch Muslim women suffering, and who won't. So my message is to them, hang in there. It won't last forever because we're fighting it. And also, if you are genuinely suffering, they're not allowed to do this to you, and go out and find someone to help you because they're out there.
Based on the interviews, most of the people on the street agree that the dress code is indeed one of the strictest features in Sharia law. And as the leading country in media entertainment, Would this affect the entertainment industry here in Britain? So as someone who's active in media, do you think that any religion could be holding people back from achieving their dreams or their goals in life?
I think it's an increasingly liberal society, and I think that people are generally going to do what they want to do. If religion stops someone from wanting to be photographed, say, or wanting to be a model, or wanting to do anything in media or arts, then that's absolutely fine. It's a big world with lots of people in it. It's not really going to hurt.
You don't think it's going to affect?
No.
No. Some people say that Sharia law is against people's basic human rights. What are your views on that?
There is an awful lot, from what I know, of telling you what you can and can't do, what you can eat, what you can wear, who you can marry. It is an awful lot of kind of, if it were in British law, we'd call it a nanny state.
Even if it's not against human rights, as it's said to be, are Muslims ready for this law, especially ones living in a multicultural country like Britain? To what extent can they be prepared? And more importantly, will it affect people from other religions? Several newspaper reports suggest that over time Sharia law could be implemented here in Britain. So what's your opinion on that? Do you think it's a law that could kind of span everyone?
Sharia law is all-encompassing, from what I know. And another thing is Sharia law can be changed as well, and innovated and tailored to suit what country you're living in and what democracy you're living in. So to ask that question, it's existential. I can't answer it like in one sentence because it's that broad. People will say, oh, Sharia law, we're going to follow it strictly by what's being given to us. But actually, it's not that easy, and there's a lot of things you have to think about to make it work.
Do you think Sharia law is suitable for everyone, or do you think it's just suitable for Muslims? Do you think it could be something that British people, Christians, etc., they could abide by?
I don't think that they'd agree with it because it's the Muslim way of life, it's the Islamic way of life, and I don't think it correlates with everybody else's perception of the way that they want to live their life.
Some people say that Sharia law is against human rights. What's your views on that?
Do they know what it is? Stuff about getting your hands chopped off and being stoned for fornication, things like that. Yeah. That's probably why people are saying it's against human rights. But those things don't transpire. Like, you won't get stoned just without proof, like just on a whim or because somebody said or based on an accusation.
Okay.
It's got to be really solid. Like nowadays there's CCTV, say for example, if you've stolen something, what background are you from? Why did you do it? Are you really, really poor? Are you struggling?
So as a Muslim, what do you think would be the best way to promote Sharia law to help clear those misconceptions?
Awareness raising. The government, with everything else, they like to do campaigns, for example, with the food, 5 a day thing, that's a government campaign. Do something like that for Sharia law if you really want people to stop the hate and understand. Put on an advert on the TV, put on some campaigns and posters. Not really any of that being done. But I don't really see why they should have to as well, because there's not that many Muslims here. We're a minority at the end of the day. But then if there is a lot of hatefulness happening, then we're being marginalised, we're being threatened on our streets, so awareness raising campaigns would be a government priority, really, in that sense.
One of the most prominent organisations in raising awareness on Sharia law is the British Muslim for Secular Democracy. To learn more about what has already been done to shape the legal proceedings within the community, we will meet the director. How does your society perceive Sharia law?
Well, we actually took part in the arbitration bill process, which aimed to regulate Sharia councils and how they operate in this country. So from 2011, I was able to give oral and written briefings to peers at the House of Lords on Sharia councils and what this new arbitration bill would do to curb their powers. For one thing, it aimed to make it a criminal offence for Sharia councils to assume a legal status that they didn't have.
Oh, I see.
So anybody falsely claiming jurisdiction would face a criminal penalty, which I think was a term of several years imprisonment.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So do you think that Sharia law could work in a democratic system at all?
Not when it comes to family law, and especially not when it comes to criminal law. And this is why I think when Sharia councils are operating in the realm of family law, they need to be so tightly controlled. But not only that, I think it's incumbent on frontline professionals such as doctors and health visitors to explain to Muslim women what their rights are under civil law as well as Islamic law as currently practiced under this country. So at least they're making an educated, informed decision. And this is something else that the arbitration bill actually aimed to do. I think it can be in practice, not all the time. I mean, there are some Sharia councils in this country which do have more just outcomes for women, and the Birmingham one is actually a very good example of this, because as far as I know, they're the only Sharia council in the country with a woman on their board.
Oh, I see.
That's right. But there are others like, for example, I've heard of cases in Leighton and also in Nuneaton where women have not received just outcomes at all. For example, there are cases where women are charged twice as much as a man does to get a divorce. And it takes a lot longer for a woman to get a divorce, regardless of the circumstances she might be facing, whether that be domestic violence or any other kind of abuse in the marriage.
So far, the implementation of Sharia law in Britain seems more and more unlikely. Thus, only one question remains. Who will have the final say?
In this country, as we know that it is impossible to apply or enforce penal code or the criminal law, the Sharia law of the court aspects of Sharia law, or any part, or in countries where Muslims are minority or where Muslim majority are not willingly accepting the Sharia law. The Sharia law has a condition that actually people willingly, majority of people, Muslims, and they are willingly accepting the Sharia law. I can't force, or you can't force, or a ruler can't force Sharia law upon people. People have to accept it and implement it. Sharia law is an adaptation of certain regulations. So that will be impossible. So the very first condition is that people unanimously, collectively make these decisions, and they refer to their legitimate ruler.
Sharia law is ancient, but it's still being implemented in many Muslim countries around the world, working alongside civil law, which is to promote our good deeds and to preserve our daily lives. When I started this journey, I had no idea where I would end up or what conclusion I would come to. But one thing's for sure, everyone I've met has been open to discussion and very welcoming to someone who knows little about the subject. So, do I have all the answers to Sharia? Not just yet, but I am a little closer in understanding what these laws mean to the people facing them. And I guess the bigger question, for them and us, is who's next, after Brunei, to let Sharia law unveil itself?